Welcome back everyone, it's Mindy here today for Lawnfawn, and I'm going to be pairing up a galaxy background using Distress Oxides and the Layered Butterflies die from Lawnfawn. I'm going to start off by creating my butterflies, so I'm only using a few pieces out of the Layered Butterflies die set. I'll be using the 2 pieces that cut a solid piece of cardstock, and then I'm also using the intricate ones where it cuts out the frame. So the first thing I'm doing is just laying those solid pieces out onto a piece of vellum from Lawnfawn, and I'm actually cutting 2 of the smaller ones. Then I'm going to cut out the outline portion using the Pixie Dust cardstock. So this is a white glitter cardstock, and it's going to make my butterflies just super sparkly and gorgeous. Once I run them through my die cut machine, I'm just poking out those inner pieces that didn't come out right away. So I'm left with the outlines of them. And then I'm just taking some Lawnfawn liquid glue and I'm applying little dots around the edges so that I can glue that on top of the vellum. Now because I'm putting this on top of a galaxy background, and the galaxy is pretty busy, if there is any glue that happens to show through, it's not going to be noticed. I didn't notice it on my cards. You could have also put some double-sided adhesive or like a stick-it type of adhesive before die cutting, or you could run them through a Xyron machine. All of those are great ideas that I didn't think of right away, but you can also try those too. So I did that to all 3 of the butterflies and they came out perfectly using the Lawnfawn glue. Next I'm going to work on my galaxy background. So I'm starting off with a piece of white cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and using a blender brush I'm applying Broken China Distress Oxide inks. Now galaxies can vary in so many different colors. I typically like to start with Broken China. That's just kind of a habit I formed, so I'm just kind of randomly putting that up towards the top of my page. I'm not worried about how well it's blending out, if it's leaving little circles, because once I'm going through all the colors of my galaxy, you're not even going to notice any of that. So I have some darker areas of the ink that I'm laying down, and I blend out in a little softer as I blend out away from that darker spot. That's just going to help mix with the next color that I apply down. And that's actually going to be my Twisted Citron. Now you're going to notice here right when I put that on, that does not look like Twisted Citron. And the reason for that is I had already been playing around with some galaxy backgrounds and I have some leftover ink on my pad. So I'm just cleaning off my brush really well. And I'm going to take a rag and kind of just wipe off the top of that ink pad. That's one thing that tends to happen when making galaxy backgrounds is because I like to go over my areas quite a bit, I'm transferring some of that ink back onto my ink pads. So you can see here on that next spot that I had done, that looks a little bit more like Twisted Citron. Once you put all these pieces together to create the galaxy, you're not even really going to notice how that one color does not look like Twisted Citron. It's just going to look like a bright color in the sky, which is exactly what I was looking for. So regardless of what color it is, it's still going to work out. Then I'm coming in with Seedless Preserves, and this adds just a really nice bright pop of color to my sky. And you can randomly place these on your cardstock. It doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason. I do go back over some of those lines just a little bit to kind of smooth out the transition. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a perfect blend because once we start adding in those darker colors, that's where everything is really going to pop out. So don't worry if it's not looking real great in the beginning. It's all going to come together. So the next one here is Blueprint Sketch, and I'm taking that and I'm going to go all the way around the edges of my cardstock and in any white areas that I have left. I'm filling that in with the Blueprint Sketch, going over some of my other areas, blending that in. And this is really starting to pull that galaxy together into that night sky behind all these gorgeous highlights in the sky. You can see I did grab a Post-it note, and that's just to protect my paper and my fingers because you will pick up that ink. So this just helps from leaving any fingerprints on my background. So just finishing up adding in some more. I wanted a little bit darker and intense color to it. So I'm just going to quick wipe up my mess. And then I'm going to come in with chipped sapphire. And this is a really nice dark blue. This is going to finish off my sky background. And this I'm not blending in all the way. I'm just going in from around the edges in a little bit to that blueprint sketch. I really wanted to make sure that I still saw that blueprint sketch back there. So just going all the way around, blending that in, kind of smoothing out that transition just a little bit more. And even though it might not still quite look like a galaxy, everything comes together when you add the stars. And even if you didn't add stars, even just putting images or sentiments on top of a background really will pull it together for you. So for my stars, I'm using Distress Paint. This is in a white, and I actually have never used this before for my stars, so this was kind of an experiment for me. I started out by just placing a little dot of it on an acrylic block. This is one of my favorite ways to add stars or even water speckles to a background, is by using an acrylic block and a paintbrush, and I'm just flicking off the edge of the block. Now I didn't dilute this yet or anything. I really wanted a bright white. And there are going to be some areas that are thicker spots than others. You're also going to see some where the paint kind of dragged onto that background, which I thought looked really cool, like a shooting star through the sky. So that is really pulling together as a galaxy. You can see those bright colors popping through. And then I did spritz down a little bit of water to thin that down. I wanted a lot more speckles. I wanted some more smaller ones to the background. So once I'm happy with that, and that looks like a galaxy to me, I'm in love with it, I'm going to start working on my sentiment. So I did just cut the fancy wavy banners die from black cardstock. This I'm using the coordinating dies of Butterfly Kisses, and I used the clouds out of that and die cut that from vellum. Now to do my sentiment, I'm using the Wavy Sayings stamp set. So I have my die cut banner there. I'll prep that with an anti-static powder tool, since I will be doing some heat embossing. And then I placed my sentiment on top of an acrylic block, and I'm going to ink that up with the clear embossing ink and stamp that right on top of my black cardstock. And then I'll go ahead and heat emboss this with some silver embossing powder. I thought the silver would be a great tie-in to the galaxy background. And I do find it helpful to hold this with a set of tweezers. That way I'm not getting my fingers burned, and it's just easier to pick up and kind of move around. So once my heat gun was nice and warmed up, I just went ahead and melted that embossing powder. One more finishing touch that I wanted to add to the background is on the Butterfly Kisses stamp set are these little trails, and I thought that would be really cute to add to the background. So I just put those on an acrylic block, lined up about where my butterflies would go, and I'm stamping that down with some jet black ink. Now these are very, very skinny lines of a stamp set, so you don't want to push too hard or you'll squish them. Like this one I just stamped is kind of squished to the top. But what I'll end up doing is covering that with my butterflies. So I'm not too worried how well it looks, but if you were doing this on a different kind of card, you might want to just be careful how much pressure you're putting down. Now because I used vellum to die cut my clouds, any other type of like liquid adhesive would probably show through on this. So I am using my Xyron sticker maker and just popping those in there and pulling that through. This is going to apply adhesive to the back, the entire back of my clouds. So I just had flipped that over and burnished that down a little bit with my bone folder. And then I'll peel away that top layer. And the entire back of the clouds is going to have that stickiness to it, so nothing should show through. Now I'll just set those right on top of my background. And once I'm happy with the placement, I'll push those down to make sure they're stuck down to the card really well. So these are great to add to the background because it's giving a little bit of hint of that sky, having the clouds there, but yet it's not covering my background. Then I'll go ahead and start adding my butterflies and just placing them around. I love making galaxy backgrounds, and this butterfly set was perfect for it. Just kind of a different way to look at using these butterflies. And I can pair a galaxy background with almost anything, so this fit together really well for me. And then to attach the butterflies, I'm just going over that with the lawnfawn liquid glue, adding just little dots to the main areas to make sure that holds it down really well. And then we'll be able to see through that vellum to that galaxy background. And I'll do that for all 3 of them. Then to attach the sentiment, I just added some foam tape to the back for a little bit of dimension. And once I have that down, I'm going to go around the edges and just trim off any excess pieces of the butterfly that are hanging off the edge. That way it'll fit into a regular envelope perfectly. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed creating this galaxy background. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.